Chapter 4, Lesson 4, Trails to California. Vocabulary in the section, Frontier, Trapper, Pioneer. Trails to California. Build on what you know. You know that if something new is going to be done, someone has to be the first to do it. Settlers crossed the high Sierra Nevada to become some of the first people from the United States to move to Alta California. Explorers crossed the frontier. Main idea. In the 1820s, people from the United States explored the mountains and valleys of Alta California. Sea traders from the United States who went to Alta California came home with stories about what they had seen. One trader, Richard Henry Dana, told of a land with such a warm climate and plentiful resources. Such stories made some explorers want to cross the western frontier and reach Alta California. A frontier is an area of land into which settlers start moving. Richard Henry Dana, a photograph of him is shown in the bottom of the page. His book, 2 Years Before the Mast, that blue book, made many people want to go to Alta California. Jedediah Strong Smith. Some explorers from the United States who went west were trappers. A trapper hunts animals for their fur. Trappers hoped to hunt animals in the West. In 1826, Jedediah Strong Smith, a trapper, became the first American to reach Alta California by land. With help from California Indians, Smith crossed the Mojave Desert to the Mission of San Gabriel. From there, he went north to the Central Valley. The next year, Smith returned east by going over the Sierra Nevada. He was the first person from the United States to cross those rugged mountains. After his trip, Smith wrote about the rich wildlife in the Central Valley. His reports caused other trappers to look for routes to Alta California. Fremont and Beckwourth. In 1844, John C. Fremont led map makers to the San Joaquin Valley. Fremont was an Army officer who explored the West. He returned the next year to map other areas and mountain passes. A mountain pass is a low gap between mountains. Finding passes through the Sierra Nevada would make it easier to get to Alta California from the United States. 5 years later, a trapper and trader named James Beckwourth found the lowest pass through the Sierra Nevada. Beckwourth had been exploring the West since he was a young man. The pass was named for him. Review. Why did trappers from the United States explore the western frontier? Beckwourth Pass. If you look at the photograph at the top of the page, you'll see the photograph of Beckwourth Pass, elevation 5,221 feet. Beckwourth Pass. Beckwourth Pass was easier to cross than other passes in the Sierra Nevada because it was the lowest pass through the mountains. It was named after James Beckwourth, who is shown in the photograph at the right. Pioneers move west. Main idea. Trappers were followed by settlers moving to Alta California. Even though Alta California was a part of Mexico, a few people from the United States moved there in hopes of finding land to farm. The Mexican government was too weak to stop them from settling. Most pioneers used land routes to reach Alta California. A pioneer is one of the first from a group or a country to enter or settle a place. Going by land cost less than traveling by sea from the eastern United States. Pioneers had to cross prairies, deserts, and the Sierra Nevada to get to Alta California. They did not have paved roads. Instead, they followed the routes that earlier explorers had taken. The Bidwell-Bartleson Party. John Bidwell organized one of the first pioneer groups to reach Alta California. Bidwell, a teacher, had read about California. He decided to move there although he had no experience crossing mountains. His wagon train, or group of wagons, left Missouri in May 1841. At first, John Bartleson led the group, but Bidwell later took over. Bidwell's party, or group, faced difficulties. Their wagons broke, and tired animals slipped on rocky paths. In the Sierra Nevada, they had to abandon most of their goods. They had barely enough food left. The hungry pioneers reached the San Joaquin Valley about 6 months after leaving Missouri. The route they used became later known as the California Trail. Moving to California by land, 1841 to 1848. If you look at the line graph at the bottom of the page, you'll see where it says moving west. The number of people moving to Alta California grew until 1846, when more pioneers went to Oregon instead. So you'll see from 1841 to 1848 the amount of people per year that moved. The Donner Party, page 141. Not all pioneers arrived safely. In 1846, the Donner family left Illinois for Alta California. Other families joined them until the wagon train grew to include 87 people. None of them knew the best way to cross the Sierra Nevada. Winter came while they were high in the mountains. As the weather grew colder, food ran out. They were trapped in snow up to 22 feet deep. 7 people managed to cross the mountains. One of these 7 was a young woman named Mary Graves. Mary wrote about the challenges of her trip in her diary. We would sit or lie in the snow and rest our weary frames, or bodies. We would sleep only to dream of something nice to eat and awake again to disappointment. Mary Graves and the others sent back help to the starving group. The Donner Party spent 4 months in the snow before being rescued. Only about half of them survived the winter. Review. What made crossing the Sierra Nevada so difficult for pioneers? Pioneers. This painting at the bottom of the page shows a wagon train of pioneers heading to Alta California around 1850. Sutter's Fort, page 142. Main idea. Sutter's Fort grew as Mexican control of Alta California weakened. One of Alta California's most famous pioneers was John Augustus Sutter. Sutter was a business owner from a Swiss family. He arrived in Alta California in 1839 and asked for a land grant. The government gave him 50,000 acres of land in the area where the city of Sacramento is today. Sutter called his land New Helvetia, which means New Switzerland. He built a fort, which he named Sutter's Fort. Mexico made Sutter the alcalde of New Helvetia. In return, they wanted him to help protect Alta California from attacks by California Indians. They also wanted his help keeping out trappers from the United States. New Helvetia grew. It became a stop for pioneers who crossed the Sierra Nevada. They could rest and get new supplies there. Sutter welcomed them through the government, though the government did not. He gave jobs to some pioneers, including John Bidwell. Sutter also sent rescuers to the Donner Party. In 1841, when the Russians decided to give up their trading post at Fort Ross, Sutter bought the fort. He brought everything he could use from the fort to New Helvetia. Explorers. This map shown at the left on the bottom of the page shows the routes of some of California's first explorers from the United States. Reading maps. What places on the map did Fremont visit during his exploration? And you'll see the different colors of arrows. The red represents the route of Jedediah Smith. The red represents the second route of Smith. The first green represents the route of John C. Fremont. The dashed green arrow is the second route of John C. Fremont. And the purple is the route of the Bidwell Party. Mexico reacts, page 143. The leaders of Alta California did not trust the pioneers from the United States as much as they did Sutter. They worried that the United States might take over Alta California. The Mexican government was losing control of the region. Wealthy rancheros fought with the governor. In 1845, a ranchero named Pio Pico became governor. He moved the government from Monterrey to Los Angeles. Pico wanted the pioneers to become Mexican citizens, but most settlers ignored him. He even suggested giving France or Britain control of Alta California to keep United States settlers out. Pico couldn't stop pioneers from coming to Alta California, however. Review. Why was Sutter's Fort important to pioneers? Governor Pio Pico. There is a photograph of him at the top of the page on page 143. He became governor after rancheros forced the earlier governor to leave. Lesson summary. In the 1820s, people from the United States began to cross the frontier to reach Alta California. Sutter's Fort became a stopping point for pioneers. The Mexican government feared that settlers from the United States would take over the region. Why it matters. Explorers and pioneers found routes that led the way for others to move and to settle in Alta California.